to the Social Work Bubble podcast. I'm your host, Laura. Welcome. If you listened to the last episode, that was the first episode of the year featuring adoptee and author Julie McGue. Today it's just me, myself, and I. I've been wanting to just have a solo episode for a second. I am sifting through a lot of podcast guest inquiries. So if you submitted a Google form or you DM'd me, I'm getting there. I really am. It's taking some time. A lot of people have reached out, which is so exciting. I'm really excited for this year of the podcast. I'm hoping we get just a lot of voices, a lot of perspectives on this year. Please be patient with me. Today we are going to be getting into politics. And I do just want to have this disclaimer. I am no expert, and I am in fact a white woman who grew up in a privileged middle-class family in rural New York. So I want to be very mindful that that is my perspective going into this. I really want to just make sure that we are aware. I am constantly trying to learn and educate myself on other ways we can, be political in social work, what that really looks like, what that means in therapy sessions. So today it really will just be things that I've done in my practice, things I've done with my clients, conversations I've had that have been really important, because I do think a lot of social workers, some that I've seen, unfortunately, and I think a lot of them are white women, have this perspective that social work is not political, which is honestly, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I think it's a foolish take. It literally says in our code of ethics that we need to engage socially and politically, and that is just a part of the work that we do. That's part of tackling the oppressive systems that our clients and communities are a part of. And it's just such an essential part of existence, especially when politics and policy and legislation and leadership and the people in power are the ones that are upholding really insane and abusive systems. And so it's a little foolish to think that that is not an important part of our work, to understand that and to bring that into the room. So again, today we're just going to be talking about things I've done, things I've learned, how I've incorporated, politics and kind of supporting clients in this political climate, especially with the inauguration that just happened. There's been a lot of sessions I've had recently processing a lot of anxieties, a lot of fears, a lot of anger, a lot of grief, and these are some things that I'm trying to do. And again, I am not perfect in this, and this is an episode where I really welcome feedback and also more suggestions. So this is a space where I want all social workers to really consider maybe doing some of these things, and even offering some feedback to me on how I could change things to maybe be more helpful to my clients. Before we dive in, please remember to follow the podcast, like it, share it with a social work friend or a social work adjacent friend, and let's get into it. So in terms of the main theme of today is how can we show up for our clients in this political climate? And the first thing that I do, and it is the basic thing with clients, is just bringing politics into the room. Just acknowledging the layer that politics plays in people's life. Because I think when we look at just these different layers in people's life, their most inner direct community, maybe their wider circle, and that we get into those bigger society things, that's a part of that lens where it's so essential because it affects us, whether we see tangible impacts or not. A lot of these things politically do affect us. So what this can look like is even just for example, with the inauguration that happened, how are you feeling about the inauguration? That's it. It's not like you're coming in with an agenda, unless you know your client very well. I've had clients, and I think my clients are also pretty aware of my political standing, which is why we work well together, where it was just like a big sigh and an eye roll, and that was all I needed to know to kind of be like, yeah, yeah, we're struggling, it's hard. Like, what are you feeling about all of this? Like, what's kind of coming up for you? And so it really is that simple thing of just like bringing it into the room. With that, I mean, we want to have the caveat of like, we don't want to assume a client's perspective or their feelings about a particular issue. It is a space where you can simply just explore it and see what comes up, as you would with any major life event. You would not avoid talking about it. It's just like one of those things where in people's personal lives, and then also in their sessions with their clients, they're avoiding these huge things that affect people. And it's just like, okay, if a client just had an argument with their parent that was really triggering for them, would you not explore that with them? Would you not process and kind of get at like their feelings and their thoughts on it? And why would we then avoid doing that with like these overarching events that are a part of everyone's lives right now? So, but again, we never want to go in with assumptions, but it's still important to like bring a political perspective into the room, because I also think that has deepened my relationships with my clients, because they know that I see a bigger picture, that it's not just this very individualistic view on their life. It's the core of social work. It is the core of social work is person in environment. That is truly who we are at our core, is person in environment. And part of our environment is the political landscape. So let's try to bring it into the room. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You know, you don't have to be offering your opinions if you feel like that's not appropriate. Although I've noticed that for some of my clients it can be very affirming. But things to think about. With that being said, I want to come also to this idea of stepping away from very Western ideas, very individualistic ideas of how we process things, how we heal, how we move forward. I think, and I've fallen into this trap as well, especially when like talking about self-care, is a lot of the times I think therapy really, really reinforces independence and doing this on your own, and just focusing on what's within your control on your own, regulating on your own, coping on your own, processing on your own, like just on your own forever. And I've really shifted away from that. And a resource I really want to share is Pat, the Radical Therapist, on Instagram. I'm obsessed with her content. A lot of like what I'm incorporating here is information that I've gotten from Pat on Instagram. And it's really helped me see, like, especially me as like a white woman, how I need to be extremely intentional and mindful with how I'm approaching these sessions and politics in general. And again, a big part of that is stepping away from individualism and like these Western ideas of coping and recovery and all these things, and stepping into this idea of community and coming together and collective self-care, collective support, like really leaning on each other. And that can even be in like emotion regulation. You can co-regulate. You know, we process things together. I think a big thing I've always shared with my clients is like, we were not born to be this alone and this isolated. Like, we were meant to be in villages with each other and like really like leaning on each other in a very integrated way. That was true community, true support. And we don't have that a lot. A lot of the times support is like just a text message from someone saying, I'm thinking of you, which is still meaningful. And I don't want to minimize like the impact of that, but it is also vastly different than I think the support that can be really powerful and actionable and also just lead to greater change. And with that, encouraging clients to step away from this individualistic mindset and to step into building community and leaning on community can also be empowering clients to use their voices, to be vulnerable with the people in their community, to organize. We can encourage them not just to process their emotions and their thoughts and what they think about something and all this stuff and then forget about it willy-nilly, but then to like really empower them to take action from that. And to like really engage with social change in that way. And that's the same for social workers, like being able to also meet with colleagues and organize with other social workers and advocate for policies that benefit our communities and our clients and our profession. Being able to also model the things that we are telling our clients, I think is really valuable. In line with community, I do think a big hurdle for people is knowledge, not having the knowledge and the information, and accessibility to things. And I think a huge part that I love about social work is so often we are the people that know what's going on and where it's happening. We can know the organization that offers a very specific service or support group. We know like where the food pantries are at and when they're open and what kind of donations they accept and what hospitals offer inpatient and outpatient and all these different things. We are such a hub of information. And I think if you're able to collect that information and share it with your clients, not just when you notice a need that they have, but to potentially have like an open resource that they can use which honestly might cut down on work that you have to do, but it's just like this ongoing collection of community resources that clients have access to, where they can be like, okay, yeah, I'm in need of maybe a food pantry, or you know what, I'd love to, what's like a Facebook group I can be a part of where we can like just trade things for free, that kind of thing. Really focusing in on mutual aid organizations. Again, building community. And a huge part of that is helping clients even figure out what is community? Like, what is community? How do we form community? What does connection look like? And even for like my clients that are maybe on the spectrum or they have social anxiety, helping them even learn how to approach another person, how to begin a conversation in order to develop meaningful relationships and connection, where to find this information where they can meet people with similar goals, similar mindsets, similar political views potentially, where they can kind of come together in that way. So that's what I also love about social work is we're also very mindful of like what resources are there and we can share those resources. And like I said, I do think sometimes we can be very reactionary to like, oh yeah, I have this very specific resource. I will refer it to you when you have that need. I think there can be a benefit to maybe having some kind of space where clients can just get this information and they have like a whole list of resources or a whole list of contact information should they ever need it, or should they maybe see that someone else is in need and they don't have to ask someone else to ask someone else to ask someone else to ask someone else. They can just have like a whole directory of local community information right at their fingertips. So I think that's really valuable. And again, really coming into this idea of community, collective action, collective self-care. We were not meant to do this on our own, and a lot of people are very isolated. And it can be incredibly difficult to have hope, to feel like you can even change anything or that it matters. We can get very existential very quickly. And I think when we start to engage in the world again and we start to talk with other people that see us and hear us and have experienced the things that we've experienced or been a victim to the systems we've been a victim to, it is really encouraging and really empowering to be like, oh, we're in this together. Like we are a collective mind, collective people coming together to live and to exist and to hopefully change a lot of things. It's such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing. I do think, in the same lane as just bringing politics into the room and exploring like the impact of politics or like a client's view on politics with them, really start to verbalize and label these big things that we're seeing, like capitalism and colonialism and patriarchy and white supremacy. All of these things that I have gotten very good at labeling in my client sessions, where so often I've noticed a lot of the people I work with can, in their mind, know that patriarchy exists, that white supremacy exists, that we are in late-stage capitalism and under the patriarchy. We can know all of these things, and yet we still have that hyper-individualism so entrenched into our psyche that we are still blaming ourselves. We are still feeling so guilty or ashamed if we're not able to do something. Just like we still carry such a load that's really just internalized stuff from like being a victim to capitalism and colonialism, patriarchy, white supremacy, etc., etc. And so I do think there is power in just labeling that with clients, especially when you notice that maybe they're turning that blame inward. And there is a difference between self-blame and accountability. If, for example, you are working with a white client, it could be valuable to call out racism in maybe something that they're saying in a way that hopefully that they would receive, like it will depend on the individual, but like that could still be valuable for them. But also I've for some of my clients, it has just been like this feeling of exhaustion and hopelessness. And when I've been able to just label some of these things like capitalism, like being just hyper independent, it clicks for them. It's just like, oh yeah, that exists. Sometimes we forget that we exist in this world that has so many things, so many systems just like weighing us down in this way and grating on us day by day. And it can just be a big relief to kind of be like, okay, now I know we want to be careful with that because I think we still want to empower clients. There are still things within their control that can provide hope. I do think there can be this world where we can get very extremely negative, like everything sucks, there's no point in living because of these things. And I think that's a very slippery slope that we want to be cautious with. But we can still validate these things and empower our clients. Another thing is educate yourself. Educate yourself. It's not your client's job to educate you. Although it's their job for like to describe their specific experience, but educate yourself on the history, educate yourself on current legislation and policy that's going on advocacy work that's going on. Try to really just stay in tune with what's happening in my community, in this more like micro community, the meso community, the macro community, like what's going on in all these different levels, what kind of policy, what kind of conversations are going on, where can I be a part of this? How can I advocate? How can I take action? How can I fight against something or critique something? What's really going to benefit the people that I'm supporting in my community at large? Especially, if we're able to advocate for legislation, if we're able to contact your representatives, and do all of that, that's huge. that is so huge, and to empower clients to do that kind of stuff too. When I say empower clients to take action, it's those kind of things, like making sure they're registered to vote, seeing if they want to email or contact their representatives to express their perspective on something, or even more just like that grassroots organizing in their communities, being involved in mutual aid organizations, all of these fabulous, beautiful things that exist. Lastly, continue to instill hope in your clients. I think a lot of people can get into this vein of, well, the world is ending, the apocalypse is here. And it's not great. I will say I never want to minimize the disasters of the world. But I also have this kind of more historical perspective that has given me a lot of hope, where I love history. I love learning about history. I think it's just so valuable and interesting to just like learn how other humans existed throughout the course of the world's existence. And that has also given me just a lot of hope of humans have persisted, and we continue to stick around. And look at everything that has ever happened in this world. Look at every war, every battle, every famine, every hurricane, every natural disaster, every single thing that has ever happened. Empires have risen and fallen, and we are here. And I have that same perspective of, is it hard? Yes. Is the current political landscape going to make things harder? Probably, for many people, for many of the people that we support. And I also believe that we will persist, and that we can come together, and that we can still move through this. And I think the piece of hope is something a lot of people are struggling with. And that is something that we can still be a voice of light for people to kind of be like, to still validate, yeah, this sucks, and this is whoa. There's no, I also, when I say this, I want to be very cautious that you can't reframe oppression. You can't reframe racism. You can't reframe sexism. You can't reframe any of that. This is not the space to use your cognitive behavior skills to be like, oh, it's really not that bad. Like, don't do that. You can instill hope without minimizing the issue and the many issues and the systematic oppression that is happening. So let's be careful with this balance, right? But these are some of my thoughts that I've been incorporating into my practice to try to support my clients, because I've had a lot of people come to me, of course, right, just concerned and worried, and also just seeing the direct impact of departments being wiped away, and like the concern that maybe they won't be able to get family planning care or anything, literally anything. Like there's so many concerns that people have, rightfully so. And so these are some things, at least as a therapist, as a clinical social worker, how I'm trying to approach things. And even when I'm not in direct sessions with people, being in my community, just existing in my community, seeing where there are gaps in needs, and trying to fill that for people. And it's a lot. I mean, like, it's hard to then, like, do all these things after you've had a long day at work. But I don't know, like, it's also so important and valuable. Like, the payoff is there. And I also think it's just so healing to come together. And it's one of those things where, like, is it work? Yes. But it's also so rejuvenating and refreshing to, like, come together with your community. It really doesn't feel like work many times when you maybe are collaborating with another organization or practice, or you're putting on a community event or like a prevention education session or something. Like they're really beautiful things that social workers are doing right now, and that we will continue to do throughout this time. And it's great to see. I love to see it. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Again, these are just some thoughts. I've been inspired by many people that I follow on Instagram, particularly Pat the Radical Therapist, so please go give them a follow. And that's that. Leave any comments, questions, critiques below. Like, this is something we're all like learning. This is something I'm learning, I'm incorporating. So please let me know your thoughts, and feel free to like and share with another social worker. And I will see you all next time. Thank you.